Alright, so what is up guys, this is Coach Aleman, and this online video series will help you prepare for the 11th grade US History STAR test by going over United States history through the lens of Mexican Americans. These videos will cover United States history from the perspective of Mexican Americans and focus on their stories, their achievements, their challenges, and their struggles. Remember, if you need more time to complete your assignment, you can always pause the video and you can always replay the video if you feel like you missed or misunderstood something. So if you are in my United States history class, you will recall that we talked about a man named Alexis de Tocqueville. While Alexis de Tocqueville was visiting the United States in the 1830s, Mexico was trying to populate its northernmost regions. You see, back in the 1830s, the map looked like this. Although it looks like Mexico controlled this entire area, the truth is Mexico didn't really have much control over its northern territories. Following the Mexican War of Independence from Spain, Texas and other Mexican territories were very sparsely populated. Texas itself had fewer than 3,500 residents and only about 200 soldiers, which made it extremely vulnerable to attacks by native tribes. In the hopes that an influx of settlers could control the Indian tribes, the bankrupt Mexican government relaxed its own immigration policies for the northern region. Finally able to settle legally in Texas, many Anglo-Americans from the United States soon vastly outnumbered native Mexicans living in Texas, often referred to as Tejanos. Most of these immigrants who came to Texas came from the southern areas of the United States. Many were slave owners, and most brought with them significant prejudice and racism towards the Tejanos. The major issue Anglo-Americans had living in Mexico was that Mexico's Constitution of 1824 guaranteed the equality of all of its citizens regardless of race, and as a result, slavery was prohibited in Mexico. Unlike the United States, who viewed black people as inferior and unworthy of citizenship, Mexico considered black people equals and gave them citizenship. Mexicans even voted for Vicente Guerrero, who was half African, to become Mexico's second president. That didn't happen in the United States until almost 200 years later, when Obama became the 44th president of the United States. So as more and more Anglo-Americans poured into Texas, Mexican authorities became increasingly concerned about the stability of its northern region. In response, President Anastasio Bustamante, who was Mexico's fourth president, implemented the laws of April 6, 1830, which among many other things prohibited immigration to Texas from the United States and reiterated the ban on slavery. Settlers simply circumvented or ignored these laws. So think about this situation real quick. The immigrants during these times were white Americans attempting to move into Mexico, and they did it illegally. So by 1834, an estimated 30,000 Anglo-Americans lived in what was considered Coahuila and Texas, compared to only 7,800 Mexican-born residents. By the end of 1835, almost 5,000 enslaved African Americans also lived in Texas. So then what happened? Well, many of the American settlers that were invited by the Mexican government to populate Texas and other northern Mexican territories and provinces had a choice. They could give up on slavery and free their slaves, or they could give up on Mexico and form a country of their own. Additionally, some of the American settlers had the idea that Texas should be annexed by the United States, where they could keep the institution of slavery alive. So what did these Americans do? Of course, they gave up on Mexico and declared their independence. Now, in your 7th grade Texas history class, you probably remember learning about the Alamo and the Texas Revolution. I'm sure you learned about American heroes such as Sam Houston, Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, William Travis, and Stephen F. Austin. But it's important to remember that they were on the side of keeping slavery alive. So were these Anglo-Americans really heroes fighting for freedom and liberty against a tyrannical Mexican government? Or were they simply disgruntled slave owners upset with the Mexican government because they were forced to free their slaves? This question, like many questions in history, does not have a definite answer, and in reality there's truth in both answers. You see, what many Texas history textbooks and Alamo movies fail to mention is that there were many Tejanos who fought alongside these Anglo-American heroes. One of these men was a guy named Juan Seguin. Seguin was a third-generation Tejano who saw himself more of a Texan instead of a Mexican. He refused to be called Mexicano and instead called himself a Tejano. And there were many Tejanos just like him that didn't appreciate how Texas was ruled by Mexico City, which was almost 900 miles away. So Seguin felt that Mexico should let Texas rule itself. And in 1832, when a Mexican general named Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna led a revolt to overthrow Mexico's president Anastasio Bustamante, Tejanos like Seguin and English-speaking Anglo-American settlers used Santa Anna's rise to power as an excuse to take up arms against Mexico. Relations between Mexico City and Texas quickly deteriorated, and by 1835, Texas was in an open rebellion against Mexico. This is known as the Texas Revolution, and this is where the story of the Alamo takes place. Which, by the way, let me remind you guys that my name is Coach Aleman, not Coach Alamo. I've had students in the past call me Coach Alamo or Mr. Alamo, but that is not my name. My name is Coach Aleman. But anyways, back to the story. Seguin, along with many other Tejanos, fought alongside Anglo-Americans like Crockett, Travis, and Bowie. Right before Santa Anna's forces launched its final assault at the Alamo, Seguin left to seek reinforcements. By the time Seguin returned to the Alamo's defenses had been breached and all 189 defenders had been killed. To the cry of "Remember the Alamo," Seguin gathered a large group of Tejanos to help Sam Houston defeat Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto. The Battle of San Jacinto became the decisive battle in the Texas Revolution, and Texas gained its independence as a result. Juan Seguin was named military commander of West Texas. He became a senator in the new Republic of Texas and later became the mayor of San Antonio. And that was it. He became a hero and lived happily ever after, right? Well, no, history is not a fairy tale. After Texas gained independence from Mexico, more and more Anglo-Americans began to settle in Texas, and the story of the Alamo was still very fresh in their minds. Anglo-Americans never made a distinction between Mexicanos and Tejanos. To them, everyone, including Seguin, was a Mexican. After Texas gained its independence, angry Anglo-Americans would ride across Texas and burn down Tejano farms, homes, and ranches. Many Tejanos who once fought alongside Sam Houston were brutally beat and murdered. Tejanos pleaded for Seguin to protect them, but he was powerless. You see, Seguin couldn't help them because his Anglo allies had betrayed him. They raised false charges against him, accused him of fraud, and as a result, he was denied any help and was forced to flee into Mexico. I have become a foreigner in my own land and forced to seek refuge among my enemies, Seguin famously said. It's interesting how Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie all became legends and are now regarded as heroes. Their names are well known and they are highly respected, yet Juan Seguin is rarely known, and until just recently his name was nothing more than just a footnote in Texas history. So why do you think that is? Why do some people become heroes and others end up forgotten? These are all questions we will answer as we continue this class. But for now, this is where this lesson ends. Hope you all enjoyed this class. Remember to answer all of the questions in your notes and complete your assignment as you follow along. Again, if you need more time, you can pause the video or you can go back and replay the video. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Enjoy your day. Good job. Good job.